The disappearance of Amelia Earhart is one of those stories where almost everyone knows the headline version. Famous aviator vanishes over the Pacific, a huge search finds nothing, and the case becomes a legend. But the more you look at the actual timeline and the evidence we do and don't have, the clearer it gets why the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum is willing to say we will likely never know exactly what happened. The basic facts are straightforward. Amelia Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, disappeared on July 2, 1937, during an attempt to fly around the world in a Lockheed Model 10E Electra. The plane has never been found. No confirmed wreckage, no confirmed remains. Just a trail of radio calls, search records, and decades of argument. The leg that ended everything was supposed to go from Lae, New Guinea to Howland Island, 2,556 miles, around 18 hours in the air. In the overall plan, this wasn't some optional stop. Howland mattered because of the Electra's range and because the route depended on refueling there. And the problem with Howland is that it's basically a speck in an enormous ocean. The Smithsonian describes it as only 2 miles long and 1 mile wide, small, remote, and hard to locate. The U.S. Coast Guard was waiting there with fuel, acting as a beacon and contact point. But being close enough to Howland in a navigation sense is not the same thing as actually seeing it. Earhart and Noonan took off from Lae at 10 a.m. local time on July 2nd. According to the Smithsonian summary, she was on leg 31 out of 34 when she vanished. About 2,200 miles already completed, with roughly 7,000 miles left to go. That's part of why the case hit so hard. It wasn't the beginning of the journey, it was the final stretch. As the hours passed, Itasca began receiving Earhart's voice transmissions intermittently, starting around 2:45 a.m. The signal strength increased over time, suggesting she was getting closer. But the communications never became what you'd want them to be in a situation like this. Clear, consistent, two-way contact. At 7:58 a.m., Itasca received what the Smithsonian describes as the strongest voice signal, rated 5+, meaning very good reception. Earhart reported she was circling, searching, and running low on fuel. Then came what's often treated as the last major transmission at 8:43 a.m. We are on the line of position 156-137. We are running north and south. After that, silence. Those final details, line of position, running north and south, sound technical, but the emotional impact is simple. It reads like two people doing the last thing they can do with the information they have, finding a navigational line, then searching along it, hoping the island appears before the fuel runs out. Complicating everything is the Smithsonian's point that Earhart and Itasca never achieved two-way voice or telegraph contact that could have guided her in. Earhart's aircraft had a Bendix direction finding radio, but the Smithsonian notes that she struggled with the new radio during the flight. And there's another detail that matters more than people expect. Neither Earhart nor Noonan knew Morse code. In other words, even if a signal is there, it didn't automatically become usable guidance. Then comes the response. Because if you've ever heard that the government looked for her, it wasn't a token effort. The Smithsonian describes this as the U.S. government's largest ever search for a lost aircraft at the time. It ran for 16 days and ended on July 19th without finding a trace. In scale, the Smithsonian puts numbers on it. 9 vessels, 4,000 crew, 66 aircraft, and a cost of more than $4 million. And still, nothing. That nothing is why this story never settles. The Smithsonian also notes there were widespread reports of possible messages or signals, but authorities dismissed them as wishful thinking or hoaxes. Over time, the case got an administrative ending without a physical one. EARHART was declared legally dead on January 5, 1939. So what's the most reasonable explanation? The Smithsonian keeps coming back to the simple version. EARHART couldn't locate Howland, ran out of fuel, and ditched it in the Pacific. If it's the known facts, it doesn't require secret plots, and it matches the last communications about fuel and searching. But the reason the case stays alive is that reasonable isn't the same thing as proven. Without confirmed wreckage, every alternative theory gets just enough oxygen to survive. The most persistent alternative cluster is the Niku-Maroro, or Gardner Island castaway hypothesis. One reason people take it seriously is that Howland's small size makes a near-miss scenario believable. If you're off course even a little, you're suddenly looking at an ocean that offers you a lot of places to disappear, including other islands. There's also a historical document that keeps showing up in discussions. A report by Lieutenant John O. Lambrette about an aerial search of the Phoenix Islands. In it, he describes Gardner Island as showing signs of recent habitation, but no survivors. He also mentions a wrecked tramp steamer on the reef, the freighter SS Norwich City. Details like that are why the theory feels tangible to some people. Not just maybe, but someone saw something unusual. Connected to Niku-Maroro is the bones controversy, which is one of the most frustrating kinds of mystery evidence. Evidence that existed, was examined, and then disappeared. A 1941 report by Dr. D.W. Hoodless describes a partial skeleton that was weather-beaten and had been exposed for a long time. Hoodless estimated a stature of about 5'5", concluded the remains were male, and suggested an age between 45 and 55. Later writers and researchers have argued back and forth over whether Hoodless's methods were adequate, and a modern reanalysis by Richard Jantz in 2018 argued that the measurements strongly support the bones being EARHART's. The catch is brutal. The bones and artifacts are missing, leaving only notes and measurements. Without the physical material, DNA testing and direct re-examination, what people want most, can't happen. Another theory family is the Japanese capture and imprisonment narrative. The Smithsonian lists recurring speculations along these lines, alongside ideas like a secret spy mission, Tokyo Rose, or EARHART living under a new identity. One reason this cluster keeps reappearing is that it produces dramatic evidence. Photos, stories, and supposed documents. And there's a clean example of how these claims can collapse. In 2017, a photo promoted as proof of EARHART in Japanese custody was found to have been published in 1935, 2 years before she disappeared. That doesn't solve the mystery, but it does show how easily the story can be pulled off course by something that feels convincing until the timeline is checked. Modern searches keep the cycle going too. Private groups have tried again and again, including multiple expeditions that came up empty. And the pattern is familiar. A sonar image looks promising, headlines surge, and then the follow-up either can't confirm it or actively reverses it. In 2024, a deep water company announced a sonar image about 100 miles from Howland that looked like an Electra at around 5,000 meters deep after scanning a huge area of seafloor. But the Smithsonian's update is blunt. Higher resolution sonar showed it was a natural rock formation. That's the structure of the EARHART mystery in a miniature. An enormous, difficult search environment, ambiguous data, and just enough uncertainty that the conclusion keeps slipping away. And culturally, the Smithsonian makes an important point. By vanishing, EARHART becomes legendary. the disappearance can even overshadow what she actually accomplished in aviation and what she represented as a public figure. The mystery doesn't just follow her legacy, it sometimes replaces it. This is a disappearance without a clear last chapter, an unprecedented search and no definitive ending, plus a century-long ecosystem of theories, debunkings, and almost discoveries, all orbiting the same quiet fact: the Electra is still missing.